Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, no matter where you are in the world. I'm Dwaine Hartman, as you know, and tonight's webinar, I want to talk about the power to transcend. Now, most people think of power in a kind of a negative way, but yet we have to have our own power to be able to maintain our own reality and do things that we need to do to move beyond into higher dimensions. You need to be able to start to focus your awareness in and around you, in and around your own reality. There are many things that can keep us moved out of our own reality in this world right now, especially right now. There's all sorts of diversion. If you find that you come into your own self and you take a look around the world in your own proximity, it's not too bad. You're pretty okay. It's when we step out of the present moment and we get too involved in the future and what could happen that we start losing our mind. Because that's where a lot of the times the hooks are. These hooks that hook us into worrying about things, concerning ourselves about things. The bottom line truth is you're gods and goddesses. And you've always have been, you always will be. You're manifesting your own reality. And the more that we get diverted away from our own personal creation, the more we get diverted. The longer it takes, the more suffering goes on. When we stop for a moment, I call it stop, drop, and shift, where you stop the noise that's going on in the world, you drop into yourself, and you shift into a place of peace that's inside of you. This kingdom that's inside of you. You begin to transcend this reality because you no longer give it your power. Your power, even though the word power has, again, negative connotations to it, power is not negative. Your own personal power to stay focused and connected in your own reality is probably one of the most important things you can do. To unhook and detach from everything that's going on in the world of things, because you're not doing that. You're doing something much more remarkable. Most of you are, that are attracted to this kind of show. You're already thinking about things that you can do to better your own reality. This is what spreads in consciousness. This is what spreads in consciousness, and other people catch the ideas of it and then want to do the same thing. They know, ever since I can remember, people have said a couple of things to me. One is that I have a funny feeling that I'm creating this. Somehow I'm creating this in my reality. You are. We create everything. Now, stop for a moment and think about this. If we're consistently concerned and worrying about and frustrated about things out there, we're corrupting our own peace within. If we come back to that peace within ourselves, if we just let it all go, cut it all off, just do this for a meditation at one point in time. And it's okay. You can cut cords from everything and everybody. just completely cut everything and say to yourself, all the energy that I spent on all of that, I now declare it come back to me. And so all the energy that you spent on worry and concern and all of these things, let that energy just cycle back and come back to you. And notice how empowered you start to feel, how awake you start to feel, how energized you start to feel. We literally waste a lot of energy concerned about this and that and the other when we could be creating our own reality the way that we see fit. You see, attention, awareness, this awareness that we have. When I mentioned the big toe on your right foot, you didn't know you had one until I mentioned it. Now you are aware of it. Where did it go before I mentioned it? Well, it was out of your awareness. Just like your right earlobe is out of your awareness until I mention it. And so many things are in and out of your awareness. And your awareness and where you place it is what you empower. Which means you're still the original gods you always were. Because it is through you that things survive and live and become more. It is through you and your awareness of it that brings it to life. I remember one time, years ago, I was on one of these sites, and it was more of a scientific site than it was a spiritual site. And they were talking about expansion of the universe. And I remember them saying that no matter where you are in the universe is expanding. And I said on the forum, I said, well, that's because no matter where consciousness is, it's expanding. No matter where consciousness is, you're expanding. You're expanding the universe from wherever you are. Well, they had a few choice words for me because, of course, they didn't believe that. Called me pseudo-scientist and all this stuff. And I just, left the chat and never returned. But, and I see I have the freedom to do that. I can just go, I wasn't really, concerned about an argument. I just wanted to say what I had to say and just pop out. If we start getting engaged in this feeling of freedom that's within us, we're free enough to do that. You don't have to argue with anybody. You can step in and say something enlightening, and if they all, if it goes up like a hornet's nest, you can just walk away. And you don't have to participate in an argument. You never have to. You can always be right because you always will be right. And that's a truth. No matter what, you will always be right. And it's about what do you want to be right about? When I get people to think about that, what is it that you really want to be right about? They'll find that what they were arguing to be right about is limiting. They can start stepping into a different level of being right, that we're completely free. You can bring in evidence to support anything you want to prove. It's truth. As soon as you start having an idea and a concept, you start bringing in evidence to prove that. You see, this is about power. This is about power in a smart way, where you realize that no matter what you're arguing for, you get to be right. But you want to question yourself as to what you want to be truly right about. A lot of people are arguing that this works better than this, or that is more effective than this. But yet, you're the most effective thing there is. Whatever you put your belief on, whatever you put your attitude or perception on, as far as freedom goes, you're the most powerful being there is. You're never trapped, ever. Ever. Because all you have to do is stop for a moment and start to think about your freedom. And as soon as you start to think about your freedom, you start creating it. It starts happening. Because we're in a relationship with source energy that is a flow, a symbiotic relationship. Source energy wants to know what it is, and you're here experiencing this and sending that information back to source energy. You have every right to change the game if you want to. You can change the game and say, you know, I'd like to experience something different, and spend a little time dreaming about that and the excitement of what that would feel like. And the next thing you know, guess what? Evidence starts showing up to support what it is that you're thinking strongly about. Always. So we always get to be right. Now, if you take a look at that and reverse engineer it, or I should say this is the reverse engineered aspect of it, but if you take a look at what common thought is I'm stuck, I can't get beyond anything, I don't believe in miracles, and they all get to be right. And there they are. So at some point in time, like one of my old teachers used to say, Wayne Dyer, is that seeing is believing to a point. And then you have to jump, and you have to see in order to believe, or you have to believe in order to see. When we do that, when we start to move beyond what has been programmed into us. Remember, I'm a dehypnotist, not a hypnotist. I'm a dehypnotist. I use hypnotherapy to help you dehypnotize what has happened to you and simply step into your true nature. The power of you, because it is there once all the hooks are out, right? And hooks and mind traps that people get you into to keep you glued to the ground. And so when we go through past stuff that's gluing you to the ground, freeing your present moment up and teaching you how to raise your vibration, you become very powerful. And you become powerful in a way that you can stop stuff from coming in and hooking you into emotionally engaging in things that really are none of your business. It's none of my business. In fact, there's so many things, so many things that are out there that, you know, we're supposed to get involved with and change and whatever. You know, I can't change anything sitting here behind a computer screen. And neither can you. But you could change you. And as you change you, you change other people that meet you, that talk to you. You change, you raise vibration, and the next thing you know, this starts a whole snowball effect of people creating their own reality. Now, who would create the reality that we're experiencing? Nobody. But you got to have the power and strength to stand alone in that, in your group of people. You have to be that light. You have to be that radiance that rises up and says, you know what? I'm going to move beyond this. I know that I can. I know that I can take my energy form, my awareness, myself, and move beyond these ongoing Groundhog Day experiences over and over again. And I can have new experiences, and I can raise into higher vibration, and I can experience something higher. And I can hold that and defend that in the sense of not, what is defending once we get to that point? Defending is just simply not letting anyone hook you into other levels, right? Dragging your vibration down. We watch what we do. We don't tell people things because we want their acceptance of us, right? Because they're not going to. You have to accept you. Or you have to find somebody who's vibrationally aware enough to know what that does to somebody when you tell them your truth and they say, oh, well, down goes your vibration again. And at some point you stop and you think to yourself, why am I asking for acceptance when there's none to be had? That, like, all I have to do is accept myself. All I have to do is have the power to accept myself and don't care what other people are thinking about what I'm thinking. And up you go in vibration. Because now it's you. Remember, when you pop out into these other dimensions, guess what? It's you. Right? If you go into 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 12th, it's you. You have to have the power within yourself to suspend that addiction. The addiction of what does other people think of me. You know that's the number one phobia in the world? What do other people think of me? Well, I'll tell you, it's none of your damn business. They could probably be thinking of paper clips, clouds, but I'll tell you what they are thinking of. They're thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about you. So you're free to move beyond that. That game that we play with ourselves. What do other people think of me? As we do that, as we let go of that a lot and say, I ask for that energy to return to me that I spent on worrying about what other people think of me, and it comes back. I remember here not too long ago, I was working with my phone and my answering machine and whatever, and I happened to be out at my parents' place, and I called myself to see if it was actually working, and I got my answering machine, and I said, hello, it's Dwaine. Oh, by the way, I love you. And, my mother looked at me like I was nuts. And then she started to laugh. And then she laughed and laughed and laughed because she had never thought of saying, I love you to yourself, right? And I do, I love me, And we all should love ourselves. We should all look in the mirror in the morning and say, hello, and what are we going to do today? And get excited about creation and what we're going to do and create and be today. And what advances can we make spiritually? And what arguments can we let go and just feel freedom? You know what I mean? And even giggle as, people want to argue with us and we just giggle and walk away. Feel that freedom. This is power. So there's a couple of things that really, the hooks that we get are hooks from the past. Guilt, right? Now, I talk about the fact that we have this guilt from the past that draws us back in. And this comes from a part of us that we have called the soul. Now, I know that a lot of you have heard, read, and experienced all kinds of things when it comes to the soul. Everyone talks about your soul. But I don't know. I haven't met anything in my own or anyone else's psyche that does more guilt trips than that soul. Because it just repeats and records time. Repeats time, records time, and repeats it back to you again. It's like a perpetual Groundhog Day. And if you step out of it and you actually become your unbounded spirit and you start to, what am I going to do? What am I going to create? It says, oh, you should feel guilty about this and get you back into your soul again. Or you're, So I'm really beginning to question, guys, this aspect of the soul. Now, there might be a higher aspect to the soul, and that's cool. And a lower aspect of the soul that's been programmed, basically. either way, I'm ready to divorce it. So that I am in that unbounded spirit all the time, creating, being that unbounded spirit. I'm wondering if that's not one of the things that we need to do to float on out into the other dimensions, is to let go of that trap that keeps us in time, repeating time and recording time. There might be higher aspects, like I say, of the soul, but I don't know. Don't know. But I'm always creating, inventing, and thinking of different ideas. That's what, I came in here like that, and I'm going to go out like that, I'm sure. So these hooks hook us from the past, and they say, well, you don't want to grow too much because you will outgrow maybe your family. Oh, and then there's guilt for that, right? Or you could unhook the hook and go, whee, and get out of there. But the present moment vibration, we want to make it as clear as possible. This is why I work with people with the past. And believe me, I make it very, very fun. I make it very quick and effortless. And usually, it doesn't take that long. And we unhook from the past and can maintain a present moment vibration. This present moment vibration is what is freedom. Because in this present moment, if you think about it, if there was no past and there was no future and you were just here in the present moment, what feeling could you bring up? Because feelings manifest. That's what manifests, is the overall feeling. Think about the feeling. What could you manifest? What could you create? Wouldn't stop you to create whatever you want to in this second. What if you wanted, say, some people ask me, how am I going to be able to have sessions with you? And I tell them, go inside, get excited about you and I working together, and watch what happens. Watch what happens, because money shows up. When I wanted to take the courses to become a hypnotherapist, which ended up being probably around $15,000 at the time, how was I going to pay for that? How did I, but I didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I held on to, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way, even though that I may not know the way personally, consciously, but I'm just going to let it go. I know there's going to be a way. I don't know what happened, but next thing you know, I've taken the courses, paid the money, take the courses, went through it. Now here I am, because I didn't limit myself, right? So I stuck to my own strength, and sometimes my own strength is to be strong enough to step out of my own conscious mind and its belief system, and step out of there and say, you know what, you don't have any idea what I can do. I'm beyond that conscious aspect of myself. I'm this, unbounded creative being, and I can fall in love with ideas and create them. When I was young, I remember all the way back in time, before I was here. I know that sounds strange, but it happened. And I remember before I got here. And I remember taking 2 orbs of light in my hands and holding them to my chest and loving myself into being here. Loving myself into being here. It was a loving expression to come here, to be here. I was so shocked because I told someone very, very, special to me about that, about being there at that time. And what amazed me is this someone who's very special to me. She painted that picture of me coming in here. And I don't know if I can find it here. There it is. And she painted this picture for me. And I'm telling you, it made me completely, every cell in my body just come alive. That's what I looked like when I came in here. And if you could see a close-up of the hands, the two orbs of light are in the hands. And I came in here that way. Thank you very much. I love that picture. And I love my friend. There is a power within all of us that we need to tap into. We're ancient. We're not, most of us didn't come here to just be a 3D robot. We came in here to be who we are, to step aside from the program and step into this greater aspect of us and shift the vibration of the planet. We're all here to do that. We're all here that's listening to something like this. We're all here to do that. And it's time that we got on what it is that we're supposed to do. So I guess I will stop and we'll take some questions now. And I hope that I talked enough about clearing out what you need to clear out so that you have the power in your present moment to then manifest what you want. Right? This reality is not a singularity. It is as individual as every person on the planet. That's the biggest trick, is to get us all focused in tunnel vision into one reality, when we have the ability to create whatever we want to create. Right? So let's go to the questions. So you lost sound. Did everybody lose sound? How do you clear out to manifest? Well, you gotta, what I do is I work with a person with the present moment vibration. They want to go from point A to point B. And so what I do is I look at it and basically back engineer what's happening. So what's happening in the past to keep this vibration low so they can't get to point B. Right? So in helping them shift what it is there in the past, whatever it is, rewrite it, do whatever, because I mean, with every person, it's a whole different thing. But I'll tell you this much, that whatever you went through in the past, and however deeply you were suppressed in the past, is a direct indication of how powerful you are, because it took that much to keep you down. So when we release that, that's what happens, is your vibration shoots up. Once your vibration shoots up and you get accustomed to it, you get accustomed to this new vibration, what happens is vibration, remember, is emotion. Freedom is a vibration. A feeling of being free is a vibration. And the more that you feel that vibration, I find that this is a lot what people don't talk about, is that the correlation between feeling and vibration. Now, when you raise vibration like that, guess what? On every level, you're, like I talked about last time, there's a sand in a plate, and when you increase the vibration, the sound vibration on it, it shifts to a different geometric shape. And so do you. When you raise vibration, you'll shift shape. Now, when you shift shape, there's a lot of things that no longer can attach to you, right? To drag you down. It's like boom. It just goes, right? So being able to work with your whatever holds you back from going from point A to point B. When you raise vibration, you raise to a vibration where you come into alignment with B. Okay? And you have every right to do that. You have every right to raise vibration and go to the same frequency as B. And then, guess what? B shows up. Whatever it is that you want to go from point A to point B. Right? So, I'm just reading right now. What do we do if our family members don't understand all this? Meaning not awake yet. Well, inner child, I don't know what to say to you. I don't know how old you are. Because if you're young enough, you may have to deal with that for a little while. And if you're not, you need to take a look at the binds that are there. I had to too. I still have a relationship with my family, my parents, but I had to cut the cords. I had to cut the cords. And I'll tell you, when I cut the cords, I remember the day that I cut the cord with my dad. It was hard to do, but when I cut that cord with my dad, he phoned me within 2 hours and asked me what was wrong. But the cord that him and I had was guilt. And I always felt guilty for leaving him on the farm. I always felt guilty for guilt. And when I cut that, then I could be myself. And I could figure out what I wanted to do. I was 20, and I had to cut that cord. Now, when I cut that cord, then it freed up my vibration to become more of what I wanted to be on my own. Him and I still connect, and we connect on a different level, a healthier level. But cutting that cord is an important thing to do. So 38, yeah, you can cut the cord. Yeah, I would think. And because if we don't cut the cord, then there's a continuous thing that happens there, right? A continuous on another level, on a higher level. There's still this going on between the two. So when you cut the cord and you make a decision that I can stand on my own, I'm fine and I'm good, you can raise vibration that way too. I'm only assuming that the relationship that you have is bringing your vibration down. And if it is, yes, cut the cord. Right. Yes, well, that can happen to inner child with a spouse, because and you have to make up your mind what you want to do there. And if it would raise your vibration more to shift that, then that's up to you to shift it or not. But you can definitely create something different in yourself. Cut cords, do things that way to shift what's happening. See, you know what I find is that it's not so much physical; it's on other realms that things are happening. And so when you can cut the cords on other realms, then it'll filter down into 3D. If you want to take back your independence or whatever it is, I have no idea of knowing. That's how come it's good to have a session with me, because then I can zero in on your specifics and create something for you. Otherwise, here I'm shooting in the dark as to the specifics of what's going on. And I wouldn't want to do that on an open forum anyway. But you have to take a look at whether this is healthy, not healthy, whether this is worth saving, not saving, whatever. And then, but you have every right to raise your vibration. You have every right to raise to higher levels of vibration. Now, a lot of times what happens is when you raise to higher level vibrations, of course, the people that are around you can't handle that level of vibration, and they start to leave you. And that's kind of a normal thing that happens with that. Yeah. So I don't know what to say, inner child. I mean, like I say, working with somebody specifically, I can truly help. Let's see. So Snowflake is listening to the advice last week about lucid dreaming to help stay into a higher vibrational state. And I had my very first lucid dream this morning. I never thought it would happen so fast. Ah, that's good. No, things happen fast. Magic happens like that. It's only... we have been taught about long time suffering and long time it takes to create things. No, boom. As soon as you have the idea, once you really get that your imagination is a very, very intricate and powerful part of you, it's actually a portal that opens up and you get to experience things now. You get to experience this sort of stuff real quick, right? It doesn't take a long time. It takes yesterday. And you start moving into these things. So the idea that it takes a long time is how they convince us to keep it away from ourselves. And of course, you know, the wonderful upbringing in the school system where we're taught not to have an imagination is really helpful there to suppress humans. So start to open up your imagination. Wonder what it would be like to feel that sort of joy, relief, and excitement in your life, and notice what starts to happen. It's remarkable. Mia said that she needs to do that with her dad. It can be a very loving thing to do too, because of course, like I talk about, relationship is a hypnotic dance, right? And so one does this, one does that. It's a dance. And we'll keep that dance going for a long, long, long time because it's not safety, it's familiarity. So a lot of people will say people are looking for safety. No, they're not. They're looking for familiarity. They're looking because they know the patterns of familiarity. So familiarity can be, for one person looking at it, could be, oh my gosh, that's really abusive, but that's familiar to that person. Okay, that's familiar to them. So they're used to that. And it takes a little while for them to question their own belief system and then step out of that, to step out of abuse. But the dance goes on. Now, the dance goes on in familiarity until we decide, oh, I don't like this dance anymore. I'm going to change from this dance to, a different dance, a different pattern. Well, this person's still doing this. If they want to be with you, they have to come over and do this with you, right? Now it's changed. And if they don't, well, then this kind of floats apart. That dance is the dance of relationship. So I'll say this thing and you'll do that, right? And that gets very familiar, right? And this is how come when we change the pattern, a lot of times we have people, husbands, wives, parents that are starting to spin because, of course, you're no longer in the bubble of perception that they thought where it was a comfortable dance for them. And you say, no, I'm really not that person. I would like to be who I really am. Okay? And you step out of that bubble and it goes pop, right? You start doing things that you want to do and it goes pop, right? Again, that's part of power, stepping into your power. Because these things that drag us down, these hooks, are subtle. And they can, drag us down, or we can unhook from them and float out of that. raising vibration can be contagious, Brenda, because people truly, that's what they want, right? Deep down, that's what they want. And so what happens when you start to raise vibration around people? They start coming out of the closet spiritually. They start coming out of the closet and saying, you know, I always kind of believe that, but don't tell anyone here. They'll take you aside and talk about it. And the next thing you know, you talk to them a little bit, they're coming out more and more, and then pretty soon they're talking to everybody about it because they're not scared of what other people think of them anymore. They have found their own self-acceptance inside. And so, boom, it starts moving forward. I just want to mention quickly that save 10% by entering the code MAGIC for you when you book a session with me. That for some of you that tried that this week, they found out that it had expired. Well, I restarted it again. So because people like that, I started it again. But it did run out, and so if any of you tried that and it wasn't giving you the 10%, you'll know now. You know why. Crystal is mentioning here about the feeling of guilt. And she's mentioning here that the feeling of guilt is familiar to me. Yes. And I don't know what I'm guilty for. I used to feel guilty for no reason at all. Somebody else did something wrong and I felt guilt. That's when I decided, you know what, this is getting a little crazy. I'm gonna divorce guilt. And so I'm guilty of nothing anymore. I finally got to that point where I don't feel guilty about anything. How can I? I manifest my own reality. That person manifests their own reality. If we bump into each other and things happen or don't happen or whatever, how come why am I supposed to feel guilt? Then I really studied what guilt was and where it started, you know, and it goes way back in time. But basically, guilt is a control mechanism to have us feel guilty and go down in vibration, right? So my suggestion, Crystal, is to fire it, because, you know, and say, you know, I don't feel guilt anymore. I feel joy, right? I'm addicted to joy. Claire's asking me here, could you talk a little about déjà vu, please, and precognitive dreams? I get both and feel that they are interlinked. Why do they happen, and what does it mean? Thank you. Well, okay, the first thing that's popping into my mind when you're talking about this, Claire, is that we how can I explain this? From the present moment, there is multiple realities of you heading out. Which one you choose is up to you, okay? The thing of it is that when we have déjà vu, we're also experiencing other timelines at the same time that this same thing happened that was similar. So they kind of come in and do this, right? So sitting there and you have the déjà vu moment, boom, I did this before. I feel this. This is really, you know, kicking in for me. This is the same. I remember one time I was working on the oil rigs and I walked on to that. And this was enough that I quit, because it was a real omen. It was a real sign for me to get out of there. And so I was working on the oil rigs, and what had happened was in those days they used to smoke a lot of happy cigarettes there, and wobbly pops while working, right? And I was coming up what's called the V doors. That's the back side of the oil rig. And as I was walking up there, they decided to pull pipe at the same time. And this pipe went all over the place and just about nailed me. That was my first sign. And then the next sign was that I was underneath the pipe stand, where they have the pipe stand, and there was pipe stacked up. And I was to go underneath the pipe stand where all the pipe is, and then they would kick one off, and then I would go and roll it to what's called the V doors, and they'd hook a rope on it and pull it up. Well, when he rolled the one off, and then that was my cue to go, and I was going to go roll the pipe, and then another pipe came down onto my back. Boom, took me right to my knees. So that was the second warning for me. But what was happening, and I know you were talking more spiritual than this, but this was like a wild event, is that what was happening is that every person there was very, very familiar to me. And I kept getting this voice in my head that said, you have to get out of here or you're not going to make it past this choice point. You need to get in your truck and you need to go now. No questions asked, just go. And so that's what I ended up doing. When I got hit in the back with that took me down. I couldn't work anyway, and I just got out of there. And I quit oil rigs forever. And I'm glad that I did. But what was really strange was that every person that I met on that oil rig was familiar to me, like deja vu. The whole thing was like deja vu. And I was like, poof. So on another timeline, I did die. I did die there on the oil rigs. And it was like sending me an omen or a warning or whatever. So, I mean, these can be very, very powerful. And they're like, they can be warnings. They can just be familiarities, you know? I remember another time that I was in my office and I could hear this crackling. It sounded like fire. Crackling. And I'm going, what the heck? Something's burning. So I got up and I ran out into the front part and nothing there. And then my business partner, Kevin, his office was right there, and I opened up the door, and there's his desk cracking slowly in half, cracking. And I listened to this, and all of a sudden, boom, I went into deja vu. And something inside of me told me at that time, this is, time is looping. You need to hold it so it doesn't loop. And I don't even know what that meant. But I heard it through the deja vu, and so I held something inside of me, and I'm telling you, it created a wild headache. I had to go home, and while I was home, I'm still holding this, and then all of a sudden, you know, something else happened. I felt the energy of Horus come in and take it from me, and then he'd do something with it. Why he didn't take it in the beginning, I don't know. But I had to hold time for that moment so it wouldn't loop again. Don't know. Strange, but they all came through deja vu. And so these are, for me personally, I seem to have these experiences with deja vu when it's these crossing timelines, you know, when things are crossing, time, space, whatever, and it's like an alternate lifetime, or it's coming from one of these alternate timelines that are out in front of us, the many timelines that we have. That's deja vu to me. And you said deja vu and precognitive dreams, having dreams about events happening. To me, Claire, that was happening at the same time as the deja vu. In fact, I would go into this dream, you know, aspect, you know, at the same time. But yeah, precognitive dreams, dreaming about stuff in the future. You're looking at plausible timelines, and that this could happen if this event, and so you change one thing in that, and then it doesn't happen. Or you sit down with a person and you warn them, not to do this or that, and then it shifts and changes. Crystal, yes. A session with you would definitely shift that for you. I've worked with that specific emotion a lot. Guilt, yeah. But get your seatbelt on, because you're going to go into higher vibration. Terry is asking, why can other energies cause anxiety in those that are empathic? There's also, Terry, there's also a lot of broadcasting happening to put empaths into anxiety. So learning to cut that off and recognize it for what it is. Once you recognize it, it's like you can shift it, because you come into your power that we're talking about here, the power to transcend. You have the choice then, once you recognize, is to move that vibrational frequency out. It's like, I've done all kinds of crazy things. Like, they used to talk about wearing a tinfoil hat back when and so now what I'll do is I'll play with the concept and idea of having a tinfoil auric field that'll bounce that stuff off. Whatever works, whatever brings you back to that freedom is going to work for you, right? And so that's my advice, is that it is the fact that you're an empath and that you can feel, because not only can you feel, because to be an empath, that's one way where you're feeling everything, but also an empath is to project, and they don't want you to start projecting, because if you start projecting, you're going to change the planet, right? Empaths do that. So what they want is to keep it from the outside coming in. Just take some time and meditate, Terry, and think about that vibration that's being sent to you, and just use the God within you and just enough, right? This is my game, my rules, right? So I don't know how many times in a month that I use that. This is my game, my rules. When I catch the fact that reality is kind of crouching, their reality is kind of crouching in again. My game, my rules, get out, right? And you have to have the power to do that, right? So that doesn't take compromise. You can't compromise with that. You can't say, oh, well, I want to be a little more loving and, and all that. Well, that's good. And yes, but there's times where you need to, right? And use that power that you are to say enough, right? And then have a clear go again, right? I don't know if I've answered your question, but is anxiety a result of blockages? You're also asking, Terry. See, you can't have anxiety for the past. That's the weird thing. You can have anxiety for the future, but you can't have anxiety for the past. So in that, when you take a look at that, because I've done things where I float people from the present moment out into their future, beyond the event that they're seeing, that they're having anxiety about it, and have them look back at it like it's in their past. And all of a sudden it just loses its clout, because there's kind of like a hardwired thing that we can't have anxiety for the past. So when you psychologically take them out into the future, beyond the point where they're having anxiety about, it goes away. But there's also a lot being projected vibrationally towards empaths right now, I'll go back and say what I was saying, with this anxiety, trying to get them off keel, right? So it's somewhere in there. So Claire's saying that that's so crazy. Yeah. It is. It's both weird and profound. You're stepping out of the confines, Claire, of what they say is real and not real. Okay, you're stepping out of that, and now you're starting to feel the multidimensional aspect of this. And that's good. That's good to feel that. That's good to experience that you have right in front of you, right here, you have the freedom of multitude of realities in any given minute, second that you could step into. It's only the vibration that we hold. Remember, vibration is feeling. The vibration you hold that dictates what reality you're going to step into in the next second. Second. Yeah. That quick. So it takes, I used to say to people that when I was a kid, we used to have these skating rinks up here in Canada, outdoor ones, because of course it gets cold enough, it freezes and you can skate on it. But these skating rinks, and they were made out of wood. They had wood boards around, but they'd always have like this 2x6 on the top, right? And we used to always walk on that 2x6 as kids, you know? And often I think about reality, and I think about the belief systems, and I think about what it is that it takes for a human being to have an experience that they're having. And it's like balancing. You have to balance the right belief, the right whatever, to get what it is that they're getting, which they don't like. And I used to tell them this story about walking on this 2x6. And I says, it's much like reality. And hopefully you'll fall right off your belief into something more delightful. Because it takes a lot of effort to keep that reality running in the same way with the same patterns. And we could simply fall off into delight. Who knows, right? But again, it's the imagination that we need to reopen again, because the imagination has been shut down, and this is why people have problems. If people could imagine their solution and step into it and feel it, they wouldn't have problems anymore. They'd be gone. I don't know. It only feels good to me, Donna, to raise vibration. I've never had it hurt, except in the beginning when I was opening up this, opening up the pineal and pituitary glands. There can be some headaches sometimes when you open that up, but only sometimes, right? It depends on you. And it could be that, and you guys, you really got to catch on to this, okay? Is that a lot of people say a lot of things, and that whether they're hypnotizing us into having experiences or whether they are true experience, I don't know. So a lot of people told me that I get headaches if I opened up my pituitary, my pineal and pituitary gland, and I did because I believed it, right? So keep an open mind to all of this stuff. You don't necessarily have to go through any symptomology. At one point in time, they told me, oh my goodness, and look at all of these, what do they call them? Ascension symptoms. Oh my gosh. And I was having them because I was thinking, okay, these are the symptoms. Remember, whatever you focus on becomes more. Okay? And I was still, I don't know, still following that path of, oh, okay, I had heat flashes, the bed was soaked in the morning, all of the stuff, and it was all ascension symptoms. And the more I read about ascension symptoms, the more I experienced of them. Remember, hypnosis goes on all the time. You can't communicate with somebody without hypnosis happening. All language is hypnotic in nature. So I want you to be aware of that so that you can change that in your life and have a freer time. Choose what you let in as your belief about what's going on. You have the power to do that. You can say, you know what, I think I'm going to have a delightful time in raising vibration. I think it's going to tickle. And by God it will, because it's your reality. You can make reality whatever you want it to be. This is the part that we're not getting, is that while we're busy having these things and that thing and those and all these experiences that everybody's telling us about, they're their experiences. You have every right to have your own. And you can have a very delightful time if you wish to. This is what I've found out. And I do. I have a delightful time now. Right? I was told one time that because I was astral traveling and I didn't see the silver cord, then I was going to die. That's what they told me. And so I stopped astral traveling as a kid. Well, now I astral travel and I don't give a flying hoot if I have a silver cord or not. That's somebody else's belief system. I can float around any way, which way I'd like to float now. Remember, yes, it's good to understand other people and whatever, but your experience of source energy and your reality is yours alone. And you need to come back into that power that it's your personal relationship with source energy. Yes, you're alone in it. It's a given, right? Some people will come in and want to bump universes with you for a while and then float away, and some will bump and stay and never leave your side. And that's okay, because vibrationally you're growing together, right? So I've talked a lot. I hope it was helpful. Exactly. There we go, Brenda. Yes. What are the symptoms of being rich? Yeah. What is those symptoms? Yeah. Giggles, freedom, right? You know. Remember, they told you all kinds of things about getting rich, right? How it's going to change you, how it's going to do all that. Maybe we should just let go of that and just say, you know, it'll just be delightful to be. I'll be able to help a lot of people in the community of light workers. I will, secretly be the secret Santa Claus, and just help all kinds of people out, right? Those are the symptoms. Maybe it's, joy, and more joy, right? We can create whatever we want to. The relationship between you and source energies is yours alone. No one has a right to dictate what it is that you and source energy choose to experience. Come into that power. Come into that power and transcend this limited reality. Thank you for coming out, everybody. Remember, utilize the 10%. It's back up and running again. 10% off any of the sessions or training or whatever you want. And come and let's go through some sessions and free yourself up. I promise you it doesn't take long, and it feels so good after. All right, so I'm going to close out, and we'll thank you for coming out, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye for now.